Ready.
All right. Looks like we ready to go. What's going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of the Conscious Approach video series on YouTube. Appreciate everybody for checking us out. My name is JV Wins. That's Dogon SS. Y'all already know what it is, man. Appreciate everybody who has been subscribing to the channel. We're very grateful for your support. We like making this content every week, so we thank you for joining us along for the ride. A lot of people had a lot of opinions on the video that we did on Coil Ray. So pretty exciting stuff, interesting conversation, but that's what we about over here on this side, man. We just like to kick logical games. So um, if you haven't joined the tribe, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and you happen to be catching wind of this or any other video on this channel, just know that we do stuff like this early and often. So if you like what we got going on, man, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, let us know what you think, leave a comment, all that good stuff, man, as we continue to crank out this logical content over here on the Conscious Approach channel. Now, with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off this week. First up, we are going to talk about Glorilla, TikTok / hip hop sensation Glorilla. We've talked about Glorilla on this channel previously. Glorilla previously made comments talking about how women shouldn't be going to the club looking for love. That was an interesting topic that we broached on this channel. And since then, Glorilla has said something yet again that we find interesting that we thought we would bring up as a topic of discussion. So, gonna go ahead and share this link real quick. Glorilla has some comments on marriage that we thought we would opine on. So this article, of course, is from Hot New Hip Hop. It says Glorilla on marriage. Couldn't see myself. Oh, and disclaimer: uh, this this content has way too many expletives for me to continuously censor myself. So I'm just gonna say the words. So
Damn.
forewarning for anybody who might be
Yeah.
turned off by
Yeah.
me reading these words as is, but I don't feel like bleeping myself every 2 seconds. So I'm
We're
just
all
gonna say,
adults here anyway. I say
yeah,
that.
I'm just gonna say the whole thing because I don't feel like bleeping myself. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out of the way real quick.
Yeah.
But this article from Hot New Hip Hop says Glorilla on marriage. Couldn't see myself fuck with one nigga for too long.
Damn.
So I'm gonna skip all the way down to the meat because the rest of this stuff is just filler. It says now very much in line with the lyrics of FNF Let's Go. Glorilla is criticizing those who believe in marriage. So you can see the original post that she put on Instagram. Well, actually, she put it on Twitter. It was just screen captioned by the Shade Room, and it was put on the Shade Room's Instagram. But it says in a now deleted tweet, Glorilla, Glorilla criticized people who still believe in marriage. However, before the tweet was deleted, the Shade Room managed to screenshot it as shown above. Quote, so y'all believe in marriage in this generation? I just couldn't myself fuck with one nigga for too long, the rapper said. Niggas
Wow.
start nigging Niggas start nigging after the first 6 months, and baby, I'm start nigging right along with a nigga. It's an interesting take, but it seemed to rub some the wrong way. Many of
Uh,
the comments on the Shade Room's post disagree with Glorilla's sentiment. Quote, I will get married. I will be happily married in love, end quote, said one comment. Fuck what y'all talking about. Many seem to agree with the user's comment as it has garnered 1,520 likes as of the writing of this article. Quote, that's because you haven't been in love, sweetheart, another user commented. I used to think the same thing. I will get tired of being with the same person until I finally fell in love and married my husband. End quote. What do you think of Glorilla's views on marriage? Let us know in the comments below. So that was Hot New Hip Hop's coverage of what Glorilla had to say about marriage. So this is, of course, Conscious Approach. So I'm going to go ahead and piggyback off of that last statement, and I'm going to pose this question to the channel. What do you think about Glorilla's comments on marriage?
which would be pretty interesting. I'd like to see what you guys have to say about that. Nah, for real, because this was real interesting what she had to say. That was
Yeah.
cool.
Let me go ahead. All right. So yeah, what do you think about that? Now, mind you, if you're familiar with her music,
Yes, well,
these aren't surprising comments, but
no,
nevertheless, she did make them publicly. So, there you go. That's more
I
Glorilla
ain't
speak
gonna
for you.
I ain't
So
gonna lie. Niggas do start niggaing after about 6 months, man. So that's actually kind of funny. But hey, look, man, I agree with her, especially for these new people. Marriage marriage isn't for everyone, just like college isn't for everyone. I say that, or any other, yeah, because some people like to go to trade school or something else. You don't have to go to college. So, so long as having a solid family structure is the end game, which I don't see how it would be if there is no marriage. But nowadays, everybody's picking baby mamas and baby daddies instead of husbands and wives. So there isn't really any more family structures going on. So people have gotten kind of used to that, unfortunately. So they really don't see the harm in just jumping from relationship to relationship, situationship to situationship. It doesn't require much responsibility, doesn't require much self development, doesn't require any patience. You can be as narcissistic as you want as a single person. And people like to rock out like that nowadays. So that seems to be the new wave. It's not just young people. Uh, this syndrome has begun uh, slightly above our generation. It's just gotten progressively worse through other generations because it's gotten like wings to it. It's like taking flight right now. It's in full form. And when we have artists like Glorilla out here spewing the latest of gospel, because she's speaking the minds of a lot of people in her cohort, and they don't see the benefit of long term relationships. But I tend to agree with her, unfortunately, especially for new people. Um, I think if you do want to get married or you do want something traditional, um, you know, you're you're one in a few. So, have your mindset and try to look for that specifically, but trying to just do the regular dating thing, dating app thing, nah, you're gonna have to narrow your search down to somebody that thinks traditional like you. But it's not too many people doing that. So her words are ringing true for too many of our young people through all races and whatever was going on. So what about you, bro? How do you feel about Miss Glorilla here? Do you think that there's some facts to what she's spewing, or do you think this is all new age hogwash?
I think that there's some facts to what she's spewing, but I don't mean that doesn't mean that it's a good thing.
That's
Um,
true.
so this to me is this to me is cultural. Um, so when I lived in a small town,
Mhm.
so I went to college as I've said on this channel plenty of times, and you know this, we used to live together. We went to school in the same place. Uh, when I lived in Tallahassee, Florida for 18 years total, I was there from the time that I moved up there to go to school in 2004 to the time that I finally got my ass up out of there in March of 2022. So I was there for 18 years legitimately. And in that 18 years, I met a lot of people. I met a lot of people who lived there, locals. Like I assimilated over time into the local community because I wasn't in school anymore. I was working a 9 to 5. I wasn't hanging around college campuses. I was older, so I was hanging around, living around local community, people who lived there. Not everybody was born there. Some people were transplants, but they were permanent residents of the community, and their existence in this place extended beyond college and college campuses and college parties and the transient nature of being in a college town where you're constantly getting in your car and leaving to go somewhere else and then coming back to go to class and leaving town to do this and leaving town to do that and blah blah blah, going home for 2 weeks. Like once you got to the point where you were living in this place, Just because it was spring break didn't mean that you were automatically gone because you lived there, so you were there. So during the 18 years that I lived there, I met a lot of people, and I rubbed and I saw what it's like to be someone who's just a local person living in a place like this for an extended period of time. And the vast majority of the people who I ran into who lived there, who I became friends with, people who I still communicate with to this day, these are people who are my age, people who might be a little younger than me, people who might be a little older than me. So from an age standpoint, it ran the gamut, and I saw marriage working. So these are people who are early. Somebody, like I said, age to me wasn't really a commonality here, because a lot of them were, some of them were 20, 21, 22. Some of them were around my age. Some of them were late 20s. Some of them were mid 30s, late 30s, and then some are 40s and older, right? But I saw marriage working when I lived in this place and were around these people. These people, it was baked into the bread of who they were as individuals to find a mate, make it, and it worked, and there was compatibility, and they just lived life, and they formed a life partnership, and they built together, and they enjoyed each other's company. Sure, it wasn't rosy all the time, and they went through stuff and blah blah blah, cliche, but for the most part, for all intents and purposes, marriage worked. Now, I don't think that there is a coincidence, because I don't believe that there is a coincidence in life in general. I don't believe in coincidences. So I believe that there is a correlation between that environment and the fact that marriage was something that was a prominent staple versus my place of home residence currently and where I was born, that being Miami, Florida, in that it's a faster environment. And she, Glorilla, is from Memphis, another fast environment. I don't think that there is a coincidence between that and the fact that she has sentiments like this, because her immediate environment is probably one in which people look at marriage as more of a fleeting proposition. When you put on top of that the fact that she is ingrained from a culture and identity standpoint into this hip hop stuff, and the content of the music now more than ever is just dick, pussy, dick, pussy. I'll have sex with your baby's father. I'll have sex with your baby's mother. I will willfully and willingly have sex with your wife. I'll take your wife or
Uh,
your girlfriend from you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Or I'll take your man. Is your man rich enough? Oh, I'll take him because my pussy's so wet. Um, I'll bust it, bust it, bust it. Like, the content of this music
so many
is so
bars.
heavily right. So the content of this music is so heavily that there's no emphasis on proper mate selection. No one cares about that. And these people are coming from an environment where it's a small town, and they're raised to sort of view marriage as a more realistic prospect, and the culture and the atmosphere of that environment isn't that you have to be concerned with your partner nigging after 6 months, because he's not going to care, because people aren't glued to social media and Instagram and TikTok and other forms of conditioning, constantly trying to DM people and get hookups and get situationships and side pieces and all of this kind of stuff on the side. All of these different things to me are completely environmental and cultural. That's kind of how I see this. And Glorilla is from an environment that is very much like this one, where it's fast and loose, and there's free sex and no consequences. And that type of lifestyle is perpetuated through the messaging and the music. And she's a champion of that music. She raps about it herself in her own music, and she features on other people's music talking about the same stuff. So it comes as no shock that in her own personal ideology, she says, I don't see a point in marriage. But again, that's only true because of the state of the culture that we live in and how we have chosen to orient our lives. That doesn't necessarily make it a good thing. And there are segments of our population, depending on where you are, where it isn't necessarily like this. So it's not a sweeping generality. It's not a wide reaching umbrella where this is how it is everywhere. Um, and this is one of the reasons why I personally still hold out hope that marriage is a realistic proposition, because I spent so much time. I spent almost 2 decades of my life seeing that it isn't a fleeting, unrealistic piece of nonsense. I've seen how it can work. It does take a certain level of maturity, and it really, really takes a certain lack of conditioning and programming, as you like to call it. And once you have been exposed to a certain level of said programming and conditioning, then yeah, it doesn't make sense, because you're going to be dealing with people who are going to do that, who are going to become wayward after 6 months, and then you're going to become wayward after 6 months. And after you continue to expose yourself to that kind of dynamic over and over again through your poor mate selection, then you yourself become wayward and you start doing the same thing. So I would imagine that she's already gotten to that point, sadly, because she's still super mad young. So to me, it's depressing to see somebody as young as that already talking like this. But it is a sign of the times. So yeah, I do think that she's speaking facts. I do think that she speaks for a lot of people, but I don't think that that's a positive thing. Um, I just look at this as environment and condition. I mean, environment and programming mainly. I could get into the racial angle of it, but I'll let that one slide. I think that culture kind of speaks for itself, because you can be from any, race, creed, culture, or background. If you ingratiate yourself with this form of programming, and you don't consume it with a filter, and I'm talking specifically about like the hip hop stuff and the music and all that, then it doesn't matter where you're from, what your race is, what your culture is, you're gonna have the same mentality. And also, like as you said, you can be older, it doesn't matter. um, it's gonna happen. So to me, environment and programming factors into why someone in her position would have such an opinion. She speaks for a lot of people, but I nevertheless find it unfortunate that she is speaking for so many people. But if more people had the ability to think for themselves and not be so swayed by environment and conditioning so regularly, then what she said wouldn't be as true. But nevertheless, it is. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot there, but I agree with most of it, especially the part where you're talking about the fast living and um, smaller towns having a different type of mentality kind of thing. But, it's still it's still the overwhelming majority. If you're a westernized person, period, uh, you really don't stand much of a chance holding on to any traditional value your ancestors had. So eventually, you're going to be a part of hookup culture, whether you like it or not. And most people get themselves caught up in it, just trying to find somebody of interest. But then this person's only interested in hooking up, and then the next person you meet is only everybody's just interested in hooking up. So when hookup culture has been the dominant thing that's going on, and this hookup culture transcends hip hop. So this is
Yeah,
going on in all communities, really, where where family and family values and stuff like that, all of that stuff is deteriorating. It's no longer becoming a thing. And so, in some communities, it may seem as though it's deteriorating faster than others, but nevertheless, it's still going on across all communities. And, um, but it's kind of this is where we're at right now. The institution of marriage, the for whatever it was conceived to be, for whatever purposes it was initially conceived for. All right, it seems to be for stability and passing assets between families, building like that, good bloodlines. It's a lot of varying things, land, this, whatever. And then it's trickled down to other things, love, romance, and all this other stuff. But a large component of that was that women depended on men. Women depended on men throughout all history because there wasn't laws, police, you know, certain things that give women opportunity to work in general. So all of these things empowering women financially has been, for better or for worse. I'm not saying I'm against it, but empowering women financially has replaced the job of men, period. And employers and the state has become their man. And so they depend on the system to finance them, and they don't really need an immediate man. And so when you hear women say that they don't need a man, the independent ones, what they're saying is they don't need a man to support them. They don't need a man to take care of them. But what they're actually saying, there's this, they don't know that it's deeper than that. When you're training yourself by saying you don't need a man, and eventually you just don't need one, and you end up not having one.
Yeah.
And and that's the mind fudge with that whole situation. So I was saying all that to say is that society has gotten to this place where the old institutions of marriage have become outdated for the various forms of the reasons why people were doing it have become outdated. I now see a benefit of it that's always been there, but I see the benefit of marriage, and it's to keep both of y'all ass out of trouble. And when y'all are together and y'all stand together, I mean, committed to each other, come on. And if you guys are doing that, you guys are staying out of trouble. But when you're out here in these streets, all right, JV Wins can attest to this. Okay, when you out here in these streets, man, ain't nothing but wild animals. You know, Forest Mills, just wild alley cats. You know, and just always on the attack, always on the prowl, always on some wild shit. And so it makes life in the dating world difficult for men or women. So the whole point of marriage is so y'all can get together and stay out of trouble. And that's why marriage is a sacred thing in religion and stuff like that, is because it helps you guys to prevent each other from sinning. Because when you out there in the world and you single and you don't got no immediate responsibilities, you'll do stuff that you wouldn't do any other time. It's like if you have somebody and you're driving in a car, you're driving reckless when you by yourself. But if you got, grandma in the front seat, you're going to drive extra careful.
Mm-hmm.
And you're making sure you're taking care of this situation and you're not out here willy-nilly. So it's the same situation. You're a single man, you driving willy-nilly, whip, whip. Now imagine there's a car seat in the back, and Junior's back there. You still whipping that hard? You're not. So family slows your ass down. It keeps you from doing dumb shit, and it keeps you out of trouble. And in today's world, with social media, garbage, and all of these sociopaths running around here claiming that they're normal people, number NPCs is what I think they are. And these crazy people out here running around terrorizing people, you got to make sure you find somebody solid and get out of the way. And let those bullets fly out there, and y'all stay chill in the house. So, easier said than done when there's so many people out here in the dating world who are chameleons. And just like how
Yeah.
Glorilla says, they start niggaing it up in about 6 months. And so I think 6 months is a little long if you ask me. It's more like 2 months people
I
start showing
also
their ass.
I
Huh?
also think she's one of the chameleons.
Oh yeah. But that's why she said she can't see herself being with somebody for such a long period of time. Because again, that's basically saying I don't see myself being responsible. I don't want to be responsible. I got money. I can do whatever I want. And that's the whole thing. And so when everybody's mindset in the West got so jacked up over here, everybody just wants to play. And if you're married and in a relationship, hell, just a relationship that's serious, nobody can play no more. Ain't no more fun. Yeah, y'all can do fun together, but that shit gets boring. Nobody wants to be bored no more. They always want the new dopamine rush, the new honeymoon phase. They just want the dopamine rush, dopamine rush, dopamine rush, at least 3 times a year. New
Yeah.
dick, new dick over there, new dick over there, and it's just like they don't get tired of it. And so then they got a whole rotation. So yeah, man, this is the new wave. Unfortunately, this is what we're dealing with. But if we still want families, if we still want something to go down in mass, then we're going to have to make a game change. And this is the last thing I'll say. So another thing, another way to look at it is inside out basketball. We don't Nobody plays inside out basketball no more. That's traditional basketball. All right. You throw it into the post, the big man backs him down, Akeem Olajuwon. All right. Shaquille O'Neal. That don't do that anymore. Everything's 3-point line. And all the old heads hate it. Well, guess what? Us traditional people that love marriage in traditional form, that's not a thing no more. And all us traditional people hate it. The game has evolved. So what can you do now to adapt? All right. So there still is a way that we can try to make some type of family system or some type of structure work between all of this madness, because there's a lot of people getting caught by the wayside and on some dumb shit just because there's no solid foundational structure. So I think that there could be some way for the new group of people out here to start relationshiping. It's going to be a lot of openness, because they're already open. Might as well just come out and say it. And but it has to be a new form because the game has evolved, and so people's going to have to adapt with it and get with the change. So a lot long-winded, but uh, you know, I think there is a solution down the line. Hopefully,
Yeah, it won't be a solution that I'm part of, but
I won't
because
do
I'm
it
not doing that open. I'm not built for that open stuff. But I do like when she okay, so a person like her, when she speaks,
either.
she's not speaking on marriage from the standpoint of the traditional stuff that you brought up,
Mm-hmm.
because and I agree that that stuff is entirely antiquated. She's speaking on it in just the straight up
Oh,
finding a
very.
quality partner sense. That's kind of what she's talking about when she speaks on niggas niggang after 6 months. Like, let's be clear on what she's talking about. You get with a dude and he's solid for maybe a little while, and then all of a sudden you feel like he's talking to other chicks or doing this, that, and the third, and running game on you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what she's referring to.
Right.
And so I mean, I don't know the solution to that either. All I can do is sit here and comment on what I observe. But I really do think that her culture and some of the things that she is sort of been conditioned to believe based upon all of these messages that she's received has ingrained upon her that there is an ideal type of mate for her. The problem is that type of mate is counterintuitive to long-term relationship stability. Now, whether she knows this or not, I'm not exactly sure. But the problem is she's dealt with this type of relationship instability at this point, despite how young she is, for long enough that she is now saying, I myself am someone to whom you don't really want to mess around with because I represent long-term relationship instability. So as I said in my opening remarks, it's kind of a dynamic that perpetuates upon itself. Um, if there was a more balanced approach to mate selection, some of that might be different. But I do think that the mate selection process for a lot of us has a lot to do with our conditioning and some of the ideals that we cling to based on things that we run across on a daily basis. Our pop culture references and influences. It's certainly not the household because that's also antiquated, just like marrying for land and family unity is antiquated. So that stuff is antiquated too, and it's just all about mate selection and compatibility. And if your mate selection process is out of whack, then you're going to become apathetic towards the idea of this kind of thing long term because you're dealing with nothing but relationship instability. And then you become a part of that. And next thing you know, you're doing it for 20, 30 years. And then once you get old and you're way past your prime, you then decide you're going to change your mate selection decisions. And what I'm suggesting is gaining the wherewithal to change some of those habits and decisions earlier in life may cause you to decide that it's not as ridiculous a notion as you might think it is in the moment. But of course, that's a lot of words, and in practice, it's easier said than done. She definitely like all of us, have our work cut out for us, because so many of it to me is just environmental, and you can't really, it takes a strong minded person to, number one, come to the realization that that's what's happening to you, but then to, number two, decide I don't need to be a part of that, and I'm going to do what I want to do. Most people don't make that decision. They just continue to do, as you call it, the hookup culture and the hookup stuff, because that's what the society and the culture is now. But be that as it may, I've seen too many instances of it working to me for me to be 100% on her side, just completely dismissing it as something that's entirely unrealistic. It depends on the person and the environment. But nevertheless, her comments are understandable, knowing her person and her environment. So,
Yeah, and so yeah, man, I hear that, but she also, and I was speaking on the part where she was basically saying that she just can't see herself doing it, you know, long term. And I was speaking in on the aspect of, you know, that's where a lot of people are at because they just love the dopamine rush, and
yeah.
nobody wants to change, and nobody wants to compromise. They just want to be in narcissistic mode all day,
What
and
was it
so
that you said? You said something a while back. You were, I forget what the video was, but you were like, we were talking about women at the time, but I guess it's transferable to men and women at this point. But you were talking about women's constant need to like always be turned on. Like that's
um,
the just kind of reference, just kind of commenting on your dopamine rush.
yeah,
Um, yeah. And it's like that's kind of factors into this whole, and it's the whole Instagram, it's the social media thing too, because you watch different posts and videos and you get the same dopamine rush, and now you want to travel all the time. And if you aren't with a man who can help you travel around the world every month, you can't get the travel dopamine rush that helps you to feel like this is something that continues to be fun and exciting. The moment that you're not constantly traveling around the world is the moment that it becomes boring. And who wants to do that?
yeah, and it's like, and for like women who can just, you know, while they ride in the carousel, you know, they get all flavors of men, and so it's kind of like one of those box of chocolates where there's all those different kinds of chocolates in there, and they love variety. Women love variety, and so give them the option, they'll take variety all the time. Men love variety too, and sooner or later, men gonna realize that women are just like you, bro, and they love variety too, just like your ass, bro. So, because we love to think that, oh no, they did not. Nah, man,
No.
they be wanting to
Yeah.
switch it up too, and so they be loving more than one flavor in that damn box. And so when you tell them that, hey, you can only have one of these, and she don't know what to pick, the cherry filled one or the one with coconuts on it, and she's torn. And that's what all of these women are doing nowadays. They torn between the complete jackass and the simp man. And so it's, yeah, it's just, it's simp wars out here. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So, you know, this is just the wave, man. This is just what's happening in mass. And that's what I'm saying. If what is the solution? That's my thing. I was just trying to find a solution. And I'm just trying to get people to say, hey, if you're gonna abandon marriage, okay, cool. Where are you gonna go to? And everybody's in freelance mode. And it's like, all right, well, it has to be something that makes some sense for y'all to get something going. But I think, and just to bring it back to my center point, I think marriage is important. And I'm saying that the new way that I look at it is to keep your ass in balance, and you need to be balanced in life, and marriage helps you do that. You have to be a very responsible person. You have to grow a lot, and there's a lot of things you got to do once you decide to go that far in life with one person. So there's a lot of benefits to it in life, period. But if you just want to play and have fun, have at it. But I'm telling you right now, those people burn out faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
pick and choose wisely. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a burnout factor. And I've been saying this for years. You're absolutely correct. Um, I used to kind of tell some of my other friends and whatnot all the time. I used to be like, bro, you think these girls don't want to have their fun the same way that you do?
Yeah,
Like
bro.
y'all dudes really need to understand that anything when it comes to this kind of conversation or this kind of we talking about men and women dating, relationships, sex, and all of that kind of stuff. Anything men want to do, women have access to more easily, more readily, and they can do whatever you can do at a higher level. Because for the most part, the men who are able to exercise ultimate options when it comes to women, they have to reside within a particular socioeconomic bracket in order to be able to pull that off with regularity. For the most part, uh, women can do that just off the sake of their existence. Pretty much by the time that they become legal, women can do everything that you can do. So, bro, once you get to the point where you're making the most money that you're gonna make, once you've peaked in your mid 40s, approaching 50, that girl was able to do that when she was 18. um it is what it is. So I mean, yeah, chickens have definitely come home to roost when it comes to that particular conversation. That's why I don't put anything past any woman these days, and I'm not trying to be indifferent or apathetic towards women as serial daters, polygamous cheaters, whatever you however you want to phrase it or characterize it. I'm just saying, I think at this point, and I think every other man as well, should just maintain realistic expectations. Never think that at any moment you're the only guy she's talking to, and never think that at any moment you can't be replaced in her rotation. Because you are one of many to her, and you are not special enough to be brought to the top of the list. The only time that you become special is when you put a ring on her finger. And as Glorilla has indicated, these days, good luck getting a ring on one of these chicks' fingers.
Yeah, they don't want it,
So
dude. They gonna
yeah,
scare you
they
out the
don't,
door
and
first.
they don't care. They don't view you as anything more than another body at this point. Like they they discard you as much as we've always discarded them. It's become a level playing field, if not more so advantage women, because like I said, women have easier, more readily available access to sex than men do by far. It's not even a discussion. That is a fact. I don't want anybody coming over here debating that. That is a fact. I'll probably, men peak by the time that they're making the most money, which on average is usually around 45, 50 years old. Women are already peaking at 18 years old. Okay, that's why you see so many of these chicks 18 dating dudes who are damn near 30 sometimes. These women can get whatever they want in many cases. So please just maintain realistic expectations.
Yep. Yo,
Oh boy. All right. Well,
they
appreciate
will.
that, Glorilla. Another piece of content for the Conscious Approach channel.
Yeah, a new
Uh,
friend of the channel. Looks like.
yeah, yes. She
Look
is a
out.
friend of the channel. Yeah. She first time married at 60 years old, probably. But
No, she's
we'll
not
keep
getting
an eye
married.
on that one just to see how that one transpires.
Yeah, right.
All right. So next up, we are going to talk about Summer Walker. She's another one of these hip hop slash, music celebritantes.
That's right.
So she's clapping back at people who have slick things to say about her penchant for getting pregnant. So I'm not exactly sure how this came up, um, but she does her appearances here and there. Um, I think she's about to make an appearance on Young Miami's show. I believe that's the context. But these were interesting comments that she made about people who have something to say about the fact that she gets pregnant as often as she does, I guess, or by different men, I guess, or I guess that's the context. But this one says Summer Walker retorts at Instagram user making fun of her pregnancies. With the release of her hotly anticipated new EP, Clear 2 Soft Life, Summer Walker is riding high on a wave of praise and a successful return to the recorded project space. However, some out there unfortunately keep speaking on her personal life instead. For example, her and Young Miami recently teased that she would be the next guest on the latter's podcast, Carisha Please. I think I'm saying that right. Carisha. Uh, Maybe a fan in particular wanted to imagine what funny questions Miami would have for her, but if so, the joke clearly didn't land. Quote, how many niggas you gonna let get you pregnant? The commenter wrote in quotation marks. Quote, as many as I want, Summer Walker replied. Rich people can do what they want because they can afford it. Stop counting my pussy.
Damn.
In fact, even in fact, even Young Miami herself came into the neighborhood talks coverage of the clapback to show her support for the singer. Energy summer, she commented in the Instagram post. What's more is that such a dig is moot considering all that Summer's done lately, getting her flowers from Sukihana, Lotto, and many more for Clear 2 Soft Life. I guess those are just collabs on that album. Still, that's not to say that a lot of people aren't interested in the 27-year-old's personal life in less hurtful ways. For example, her recently public relationship with Lil Meech has brought forth a lot of wholesome content for fans to feed on. Most importantly, the two seem to have a very good time together, so much so that people want it reflected more in her stage presence after she danced enthusiastically with him. In classic Summer Walker fashion, she brushed those criticisms off quite easily. Quote, I'm tired, she expressed on Instagram. If I came out on stage like this to show slow ass music, they'd say it's crack. Like, please. Meanwhile, even a sex tape involving her current boo can't phase her. Moreover, Selena Powell posted a video of her and Lil Meech allegedly engaging on OnlyFans, which could have been a speed bump, which could have been a big speed bump for other couples. For them, it seemed like more of a yield sign that they sped right through. No matter what you think of the Atlanta native, she'll probably retort it in a funny and matter of fact way. For more news and the latest updates on Summer Walker, law back in out new hip hop. So, yeah, Summer Walker has 3 kids. I think she's 27. She had her first kid with producer London on the track. That didn't work out. Then she gave birth to twins by some dude named Larry, and that also did not work out. And now she is dating Lil Meech,
Larry.
who plays Big Meech in the 50 Cent Stars show, BMF. And Big Meech, Lil Meech, all of these damn names. Lil Meech underwent, he apparently, uh, got some action from industry thought Selena Powell,
Damn.
and she talked about it, and I think there's a video of it, but apparently that didn't affect his relationship with Summer Walker. So there you go. The main reason why I brought this up was the comment that she made, in which she said, the comment that she made about rich people, saying rich people can do what they want because they can afford to stop counting my pussy. So there you go. Summer Walker spares no expense to make it clear she's going to do whatever she wants. And if that involves having more kids, she's going to do that because she's rich. So stop counting her pussy.
Damn.
What do you think about all of that?
All right. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to do a little confession right now. I had no idea who Summer Walker was. Now, you guys could just boo me, throw tomatoes, take whatever I'm about to say as invalid. But I think me being objective with this whole situation helps my analysis. So here's what I gotta say. All right, so I did a little research. I can't say that I've heard any of these songs, but I'm sure I have. All right, I only clicked on a handful. And as I'm going through her catalog, at least on YouTube, she sounds pretty good. So she sounds new age R&B. It sounds like she's trying to be old school R&B, but still a little too new age for me. But it's as throwback as you can get for somebody that's doing music now. So her music isn't off-putting. I'll say that. I saw her raps. Her raps are a little bit off-putting, but I like her energy. I saw a couple of interviews of hers, and she seems to be a quirky person, but who she seems to be comfortable with who she is as a quirky person. So I'm not surprised now from doing my little background of her to hear her retort to her haters, telling them to stop counting her pussy at that point. So at that point, all of that made a lot of sense. So I say all that to say that she's pretty much got a point. And to tie into my last point of, this is a different day and age, and money is changing the game for a lot of this stuff. All of the security that everybody has, for women, even though it's still dangerous for them out here. I get it, ladies, but it's still a lot of security going on out here. So, um, times have changed, and women don't have to do the same things for reproduction anymore. So, she's doing what she wants, and she got the bag to do it. She doesn't need the man to come in there and support the house. If she wants another kid, she can pop out another one, and she ain't got to worry about child support. They're gonna be running around following her. So she doesn't have a Nick Cannon situation going on. All the seeds are staying with her, so she ain't got to pay no child support. So what about you, bro? How do you feel about this? This is some new age stuff going on here with all of this relationships and pregnancies from Larry. How do you feel about this, bro?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the comments, although I do. Once again, it's one of those things. It's like the last topic. I understand it, but I don't think that has to mean that it's acceptable. I don't like the I don't like this flippant. So one thing that I've noticed is that there's now sort of flippant, and let me disclaimer, JV wins disclaimer. This
All
does not
right, here
apply
you
to
go.
everybody.
All
Okay,
right,
I
then.
gotta because I want to make that very clear. I don't mean everybody's doing this. I just mean that I'm observing this as something that is growing in frequency in terms of how
Mhm.
often it occurs over time. But like, this flippant approach to having kids, um, to me it's less about the money itself and more about the use of money as a rationalization for just flippantly having kids because you just feel like it. That's the part about it that I'm uncomfortable with. Um, like I noticed that this started happening. Like a lot of these, we've talked about some of these, sharks that exist out here in the world looking to extract uh, resources from high value men because they can, because men are lacking in certain you know brain power and social skills that can make them able to resist being caught up in that kind of thing. So women kind of prey on them. um so these sharks out here, a lot of women who live their life cleat chasing, going after rappers, athletes, professional ballers, entertainers, being hypergamists, uh, not necessarily caring about the viability of the relationship, but just intending to get pregnant on purpose. Like the idea is to have a child flippantly so that it can be used as a bargaining chip to continue to yield a particular kind of lifestyle. Like I'm not comfortable with such a flippant approach to having kids. And I even mentioned before, like I started to notice these things going on. I started to hear women talk like this, particularly younger women, where they talked about looking forward to having a baby. So like it was never really about having a family. It was just about having a baby. So they didn't really care. The prospect of being a baby mama to them wasn't something that was degrading. It wasn't
Right,
a disconcerting notion.
right.
They don't really care. It's like being a baby mama, being a baby daddy, whatever, single parenthood has become this mainstay in the West,
Yeah.
to the point where it's so prominent that women in particular sort of approach having children flippantly. Not
Hmm.
all women, but a lot of women. And it's growing in frequency. So women, if they can get with a guy who can provide something, prioritizing the long term viability of the relationship is secondary to just popping the kid out so that you can just have this kid and now you can receive what you can receive through the merit of having the child, or so that you can receive the intrinsic value that you get from being a mother in the first place. But the family aspect of it is secondary to you being a mom and having the kid. To me, that is somewhat dysfunctional and flippant. And her comment about rich people can do whatever they want, to me, that speaks to the flippant nature with which we have come to perceive having children. So, to kind of take her words literally, I will continue to irresponsibly have children because I'm rich and I can do whatever I want. Like, practically speaking, is that true? Sure, you can do whatever you want. It's your body and it's your money, and if you can afford it, because children are expensive, sure, go for it. But this to me is another sign, much like the last topic that we covered, of a degradation of traditional ideals and values. And although I understand it because I understand the genesis and I know where it comes from, I nevertheless don't really think that it is functional, and I don't think that it's stable long term. Um, some of these kids are going to grow up dysfunctional and very compromised mentally as a result of being raised within these types of contexts. And that ain't good for society, not in my opinion. I know I'm grandstanding here, but that's kind of where my mind went when I saw these kinds of comments. Like, why do we have to talk? Why do we have to? And it cuts even deeper when you think about the money part of it. Because now what you're doing is you're minimizing this down to a matter of rich versus not rich. So I'm going to continue to have these kids because I got this money and I'm rich. And I'm shitting on you. You don't make as much money as me, so you can't afford to do any of this. So if you do it, even though you may be a better quality mother than me, it's boo boo to you, the fool, because I'm rich and you're not. So now we got that whole dichotomy of rich versus not rich, and this weird thing that we typically shame men for when it comes to money or lack thereof. Now there's just a shaming of people in terms of, you know, your ability to successfully or otherwise have children based upon how rich you are or lack thereof. So, I mean, the whole thing is kind of foul to me. But I guess if I am going to take her words literally at face value, she does have a point. I'm just kind of listening to what she's saying and I'm throwing up in my mouth. I think it's gross. Like, you're rich, so what? What if you're a shitty mother? And I'm not suggesting she is a shitty mother. I don't
I
know
got,
her.
yeah, I got
Yeah, I'm just saying, in principally speaking, you know what I'm
you.
saying? Like, you're
Yeah, yeah.
what point are you making by doing that? And we do that far too often, where we deduce people's worth and value in this world, particularly with us as black people, along the lines of, are you rich? Are you making money? It's the same conversation about men and men who are working class. Men who are working class are no good, useless, worthless, not good enough because, oh my God, you're working class. You must be rich in order to be good enough for anything in this world now, if you're a guy. And this to me is a type of rhetoric that is consistent with that underlying message. You can do this because you're rich, even if you're bad at it. And, uh, I don't really like it, but I get it. I get where it comes from. I'm just not the biggest fan. So she can have that. She's already two baby daddies in. In all likelihood, she'll be three baby daddies in pretty soon. And I know we're living in a world as you and our when you said that last week, it was so profound to me because it's a very succinct way of putting it. We're in a world now of free sex and no consequences. So I understand it's free sex, no consequences. Pop these jits out, have these kids, and how can I substantiate my decision to do so? Because I'm rich and you're not. So I think it's counterproductive to raising functional human beings who can contribute to society, let alone family and all of those grandiose ideals. I'll let that one go. But just in terms of raising people who aren't going to, grow into being sociopaths as adults, I think we can let some of this stuff go. But that's just me.
Hey man, sorry, bro. This is where we're
I
at.
know, I know,
So,
I know.
and this does kind of tie into the last topic, especially what you're talking about with the whole flippant nature of people having kids. It's the same. They have the same flippant nature over marriage. No one cares, and it's old. Young people look at marriage because I was looking at marriage like really, you know, and just seeing marriages from TV, people that I knew and stuff like that. It didn't look like fun to me. And so I was like, well, I don't want to do this. So a lot of people saw that. So the people that did grow up in two-parent households saw that. Then then there was the people that grew up in no single parent households or whatever, and so in the single parent households they didn't see functionality at all, so they only saw one person, and that's only one side of functional. If even if they're doing two jobs, that's only one side of the equation. You need plus and minus to make the battery go. So so you only saw one side of the equation, so you still don't get it. So there's a lot of people who had that going on, and they said, "Well, my people made it. I turned out pretty good. What's the big deal?" And then so we got a lot of that cooking out here. So I've heard girls or women say, I'm gonna have a kid at this age, whether I'm married or not.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that a lot too.
So they
Yeah.
say, "Well, if I ain't married by whatever, I'm gonna still have a kid." I've been asked to be a donor before, and I said, "Hey, so you mean in a cup, or you mean a real thing? Because I ain't doing no cups." She talking about some cup. I said, "Girl, please, you're not getting any of this." So, but yeah, man, that's the thing. Freezing eggs. They got all kinds of stuff they doing out here now. To circumvent nature. But hey, man, this is what's going on. Unfortunately, man, in mass. So this isn't everybody, but in mass, this thing has gotten wings and it's taken off. So
Yeah.
if you're still out there in the market, you just got to know who you're dealing with. And people pretty much speak their agendas right off the bat. So if they want a baby from you, they'll let that be known. All right. If they want marriage from you, they'll let that be known. If they just want to play around, they'll let that be known. And you just got to take people's word for it. Stop trying to force these square pegs into round holes. Not everybody's worth your time and effort. And but yeah, this young lady here, yeah, she's just a reflection of what modern people are doing because well they can afford it. These are first world problems, man. So you can't really say these things in other countries in the world. But I'll tell you this. Yes, this is big in our community, like flipping it on you about money, but she's also an artist and she's
Hmm.
also in that world. And that's always the big flex is that, well, I got more resources than you. So your life must be miserable. That's why you're hating on me. And
I
so
guess yeah, I agree. Not to cut you off, I'm gonna let you finish. But yeah, when I speak on the community aspect, it's just because the majority of the people who are an artist in this particular genre of music come from the community.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not really about the community per se. It's really more about the music, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of like how rappers, artists, or whoever they gotta flip it on you that "Oh, I'm stunting on your ass." So how you love that? And of course, all the yuppies and fans is gonna love that. So, hey man, uh, more power to her, I guess. Some of the lyrics that I heard, I could barely. Sorry, yo, I can barely listen to that stuff. And I'm sitting there listening to it, and she's good now compared to all this other crap that I didn't hear. But as I'm listening to it, I'm trying to hear the lyrics, but it's too much heartbreak, too much other stuff. And to
Hmm.
me, R&B isn't always about heartbreak. So, but that's what's going on, man. So this is the
Yeah,
way we either gotta be we're just the old heads, man. We're just the
I
old
know. Oh
people.
yeah, I know for sure. I know I'm an old head.
Yeah, we're
I
just
know.
the old
I just
heads that don't get it.
yeah, man. I just look like this, but I know I'm an old head. Yeah, I hear all of that, man. It's just we comment on this channel, so it is what it is.
I got you.
But if there to me, there's a difference between I want to be a mother, so I'm going to give it a go. But if it doesn't work out where I can actually have a partner, then I need a backup plan so that I can do this before my clock runs out and my body will no longer allow me to have children. There's a difference between that and I'll just, drop jits and be a baby mama. Like doing that on purpose. Like to me, there's a difference between those two things. And like I think nowadays we're looking at there being a lack of social responsibility when it comes to discouraging doing it that way on purpose. Not that it's impossible to do it that way on purpose and it turn out okay. I'm not trying to suggest that it's automatically bad, but you'd be hard pressed to get me to agree with the idea that it's ideal. And what we're getting to is a point where it's like, I'm just, it is what it is. I'm just going to get pregnant, like on purpose. And is there an emphasis on whether I'm getting pregnant by somebody who would be a good dad, whether the relationship works out or not, or even will the relationship potentially work out or not? There's no emphasis on any of that at all. It's just, I'll just be a BM. Who I don't care. I'll just be a BM. And when push comes to shove, there's so many options and forms of temptation out there. These days, people's standards and principles overall are just lower across the board. So these days, women don't even the standards have been put, the pendulum has swung so far in the opposite direction when it comes to like standards, that women can have two, three, four kids and two, three, or four different child's fathers, and they'll still be able to get on social media and do their thing, and they can still get their DMs and get their dates, and they can still do whatever because free sex and no consequences.
I
So
love it.
it is what it is, man. But interesting comments nevertheless. But yeah, I just got, it's interesting to see how having kids has become so trivialized. I think is what I find most fascinating about that. So you
Yeah,
know,
and that just and this conversation just proves that statistic correct about all these women having kids from the same guys,
yeah,
because this is how it works. They just hopping around, and then they because they have sex with the man that
oh
has
yeah,
3 baby mamas already,
yeah, yeah,
and they
sure,
they go, oh, he working, his seeds work. That must be where they at, and that's how they end up being the fourth one.
yeah,
Yeah, and then they have
yeah.
this big ass Brady Bunch family, and these reunions in the next 10 years, I don't know what's gonna be going on,
I
but
don't either. It's gonna be interesting. I'm
hey
telling you,
man,
man, like this, we are literally like, we're now 30 or 40 years later starting to see the fruits that like single parenthood initially bore back when we were kids. Cause I feel like maybe Gen Xers, right? So like your older siblings generation, my older brother's generation is the first generation where the baby mama baby daddy thing really started to become like a norm type thing. And now as we're grown, we now are pushing 40. We're starting to see the fruits of that labor all these years later. So these things take time to evolve. But 30, 40 years from now, we're going to see the results and the ramifications of free sex, no consequences.
oh man, gotta
We
love it.
are. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what that looks like.
Uh,
But
man,
yeah, shouts out to Summer Walker. Yeah, baby, you go ahead and get pregnant as many times as you want because you rich and you can afford it. Maybe you and Nick Cannon can get together and write a book on how to
oh
make
yeah,
it
hey
happen.
man, they're just gonna get together one of these times.
That
How
would
about
be the ultimate Brady Bunch. That would be like Brady Bunch on steroids.
that? Hysterical.
Yeah. Okay,
Lebanon.
so friend of the channel, LBJ, LeBron James, baby. So
Yep.
LeBron James, much to my delight, he and the Lakers were swept out of the playoffs by the Denver Nuggets 4-0, lost all four games. I enjoyed every second of it. Uh LeBron, yeah, and the Lakers were swept out of the playoffs, Western Conference Finals by the Denver Nuggets, who should have been favored the entire time, but smart people in the media were favoring the Lakers. I don't get it, but this is the LeBron factor. Even though he's ancient. Um, but yeah, so the Lakers were swept out of the playoffs. And now there's an interesting conversation that's been taking place. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up on the channel is because I find this conversation fascinating. We've talked about LeBron on this channel many times before. And what people in mainstream as well as new media have been discussing is the value of making it to the conference finals and getting swept, and how much of an achievement that is, juxtaposed to potentially having lost in a previous round, but it being a hard fought battle. So, does it look better to get swept in the conference finals or lose in a previous round, but it went 6 or 7 games? They were talking about this on Speak today on Fox, and I thought that it was a pretty interesting conversation. And it's even more interesting when you pair it with this whole the trajectory of LeBron's career and the fact that he's been to the finals like 10 times or however many times he's been. You're either on the side of somebody who says you went all those times and you lost 6 out of the 10 times, or you're on the other side and you're saying, do you know how hard it is to go to the finals 10 times? What an amazing achievement. He's the greatest ever, right? So there's this argument going back and forth with this, and an analyzation of what this sweep means to LeBron's quote unquote legacy, a word that I do think that we need to retire. Um, but yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. I know I have my thoughts on this, but I mean, what do you think about that? Like, because they started off the season 2-10. They made all of those trades at the trade deadline, and then they got to the Western Conference Finals, you know, and then they ended up getting swept. And people are giving him and the Lakers their flowers for getting to the conference finals,
That's
one
right.
round away from the finals, even though they lost, in my opinion, embarrassingly, because you lost all 4 games. You couldn't even win a game. And so there's that dichotomy because the LeBron fans are saying they got there. So it shouldn't be a stain if they got that far, even though it was a sweep. And the LeBron detractors, myself among them, are saying it was a sweep. So, what do you have to say about that? I know we talk about LeBron a lot on this channel, but I thought that this was interesting.
Uh, yeah, I think that them making it to the Western Conference Finals, of course, that's an accomplishment. All right, but I still view this season as an utter failure for the Lakers because of the way they lost and the way they got exposed was, well, everything that was wrong with them in the first place. So to watch them get dismantled the way that they did, and yes, it was a dismantling. All right, the people, oh, the game was close. Yeah, it was a dismantling, and so the way they got dismantled, I enjoyed it because the Lakers were playing LeBron ball, front runner basketball, and that gets into trouble when you have to make adjustments. That gets into trouble when you're playing teams that rotate defensively. It's just a problem when you're playing against a coach who's actually trying to coach against your ass, and he's got basketball players playing basketball. And that's exactly what Denver had, and that's why the Lakers didn't stand a chance. Look, man, I wish I was making up this basketball stuff. But the reason why everybody loves what the Heat is doing because the Heat plays basketball. And we beat teams that are not disciplined and that are not playing basketball. Period. If the Heat played the Lakers this year in the finals, we would have whooped their ass. Because they clearly they couldn't stand up against a team that was hooping like that and playing basketball. And my problem with LeBron, and I'll let you go. Because yes, did he have 30 points in the first half yesterday? Of course. Did he go off and all this other stuff? Yeah. Did he not get help? Of course he didn't. He never does. But why does he not get help? Maybe he's not getting help because those 30 points were taking away from other people getting theirs. Maybe he's not allowing people besides Austin Reeves. And people can argue that he's the only person that can put it on the floor or whatever, but why is he the only person that can go to work and everybody else is just relegated to standing in the corner? And so the thing is that with the Heat and what Denver does, the ball's just shooting around. Wherever the open shot is, that person's taking it. And the ball's swinging around. It's not getting pounded around and abused by the same person all the time. And, unless Murray and Jokic is cooking, whatever, but that's their own little two-man game. but that's still part of the flow of the offense. And LeBron takes away from the flow of the offense. He saps everybody's energy. And so yeah, he can go off and get his stats. He always does. He's a stat machine and a stat monster. So of course it's going to look like he did all the work and nobody joined him. But I would say is that he's not playing team basketball, and that's why his teammates couldn't help him. But what about you, bro? Do you feel like this was an accomplishment of the season? You feel like you should give LeBron his flowers for making it all the way to the Western Conference Finals?
Nope. And I think he had 31 in the first half, I believe. But
Yeah.
then he finished the game with 39 or 40. So I think in the second half he really cooled off and he only scored like 8 or 9 points in the second half. Somebody fact check me on that in the comments. But the overwhelming majority of that production was first half. Second half, it was not the same. And I believe it was not the same because he's almost 40.
Yeah.
So you cannot do that for an entire game. For
Right.
whatever LeBron ball was worth when he was younger, he can't sustain it physically anymore. I know all y'all LeBron lovers feel like he's still one of the best play. He is one of the best players by default, but he's not 25, 26, 27-year-old freight train, limitless energy LeBron. You get that much production from him in the first half, there's going to be a fatigue factor. And it showed. He ran out of gas, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But to the topic at hand, so for the people who aren't a part of the greatest of all time discussion, I think getting further but losing in embarrassing fashion, such as a sweep, is better than losing in the previous round. It is. So, like, if you're not, like, if you're just a good player or a great player, but you're not top 10, top five ever, if you get to the conference finals and you get swept, to me, that is better than losing in 6 or 7 games in the semifinals. I mean, you are one round away from the championship round. I can't take that away from you. But when you're talking about somebody who is being debated as the greatest player ever, to me, it's worse to get that far and then get swept. Because when that happens, people like me who do not believe that LeBron is one of the people like me who don't think LeBron is the greatest player ever will use it as a chip against his leisure. I'm going to bring up the fact that he got swept. I'm going to talk if I'm in a debate and by the way, like I've retired from LeBron greatest of all time debates. I'm tired. Unless I'm getting paid to do it. Like if I was on First Take or one of these shows and I was paid to talk about this stuff, fine. But just generally speaking in
Not an
life,
argument.
I've retired. I no longer get into it. It's exhausting. I get mentally and emotionally worked up. And I'm not about to get that stressed out over something that I'm not being paid for. So if you think LeBron is the greatest ever, you can have it. I don't give a damn. But on the off chance you catch me talking about this, someone such as myself who doesn't think he's the greatest player ever is going to bring up the fact that he was swept. You are better off losing in the semifinals, where I could just say you lost in the semifinals. But there's a greater sting and there's more ammo in my arsenal when I bring up the fact that you didn't even win a game and you got swept out of there. And the reason why it matters is because when you're talking about the greatest players ever, right? So and this is with any sport, not just basketball, but for this particular conversation, we're talking about basketball. There's a room where you have the greatest players ever, and that room is very small. It's like 10 guys in there. In the history of the league, there's been how many thousands of NBA players? But in this one small little tiny room, you got 10 people in that room. I'm not going to name the 10 people because that's subjective. The point is, in this room, you got like 10 people. Now, in that room of 10 people, which is already small enough, so it's already damn near impossible to get into the initial room of 10 people. But now within that initial room of 10 people, there's an even smaller room. There's the room within the room. I call the room within the room the inner sanctum. That's the room that's like 3 people are in there, 2 people are in there. This is the room within the room. And when you're trying to debate who goes ahead of who in the inner sanctum, you get to a point where you're picking nits. Because when you're in the, first of all, you're already dealing with this in the small room of 10 people. But when you're talking about the inner sanctum, the amount of people who are in there is so small, and everybody in that room, 2 3 men at the most, their respective careers are so great that in order to differentiate any of them, you're going to have to pick nits. It's going to seem minor by comparison, but these minor nitpickings are all that separates the guys who are in the inner sanctum. So if I'm going to believe that LeBron, if I'm going to subscribe to the notion that LeBron is in the inner sanctum with 1 or 2 other people, then at that point I'm going to compare his career and his achievements to the other guys who are in the inner sanctum. And if Michael Jordan is in the inner sanctum, I'm going to say that once Michael Jordan started winning championships, he didn't stop and he never got swept. Whereas LeBron went to the finals 10 times and lost 6 of those 10 times. Now, if you compare that to every other career throughout the history of the sport, I'm going to say advantage LeBron. He did more than 97, 98% of these guys, even the guys who are in that inner room, the room, the small room, the 10 people. But I'm sorry, when you're in the inner sanctum and we're picking nits, I'm going to bring up injuries, suspensions, sweeps, finals losses, blown games. I'm going to bring this stuff up because if I'm not bringing that up, what am I using to differentiate these people? You have to pick nits. So for someone such as myself who does say Jordan won, LeBron's maybe 3, 4, or 5, maybe, depending on my mood, I'm going to draw those comparisons. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I mean, but, LeBron did get swept in the conference finals that year against Denver, just like he got swept in the finals against the Spurs. I don't give a damn who was his. I don't give a damn that he didn't have help. He was there. He got swept. I don't care. So what? So what? Y'all don't want me to have Draymond Green getting suspended in 2016. So if I can't have that, then y'all don't get LeBron didn't have help. It's to me, it's a wash. So I get to pick my nits if you get to pick yours. So if you don't want me to bring up Draymond Green get suspended or Ray Allen saving his ass when he hit that 3 in 2013, you know what I'm saying? Or Kyrie cooking Steph and hitting a shot in game 7. If you don't want me to bring none of that stuff up, because that's what picking nits is, then you don't get to bring up LeBron not having help because he got to the finals in 05 and got swept by the Spurs. So you got swept, Tough. Sorry, but you're in the inner sanctum, and that's what you get. You get that kind of nitpicky type scrutiny. So for me, it's completely fair, and I'm going to bring that up all day. He got his ass swept, and I'm going to use that against his leisure because he's in the inner sanctum. And at the end of the day, all you can do is pick nits, respectively, when you're comparing careers and achievements. So that's pretty much how it goes, man. He was better off, in my opinion, losing in the previous round because they went 6 games against Golden State. I feel as though personally, I have less shit talking against LeBron to do in that scenario versus getting to the conference finals and saying they got dusted and were swept. And he looked spent in the second half of a lot of those games, and he couldn't shoot. And he was 4 for 20 on threes in the series and shooting whatever god awful percentage he was shooting. Because I'm picking nits, and I'm picking nits, juxtaposing him to Mike and Kobe or whoever else you like. Whoever else you like. I don't know. This isn't a greatest of all time conversation. I'm not trying to do that. My point is, I reserve the right to bring that up. So I do think there's merit to the idea that it can be detrimental to get far enough and then lose in embarrassing fashion versus losing in an earlier situation. I do think there's merit to that, but only from the standpoint of him specifically and others who are of his ilk, where people really want to try and suggest that he's the greatest player ever. So that's where I think it matters. Otherwise, in a vacuum, I mean, whatever. It depends on how you look at this stuff. I would rather not get embarrassed that bad, but getting to the conference finals is worth something, but at this point for him in his career, it's meaningless. And on top of that, he got swept, so he's going to have to put that in his pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, and I'll say that's a good point because once you start getting up there to the top tier dudes, all resumes are impeccable, and they started building LeBron's resumes before he even got in the damn league.
Yeah,
So his resume is up there with everybody. But I ain't gonna lie, man. There's some records that they'll be out there, during the playoffs. It's not even a Lakers game. Somebody will do something fire, and they'll name a list of people who did that in the playoffs, and it's Jordan and LeBron and Kobe and Iverson and names
yeah,
Bird, and his name is always in all of those things. So, nobody can do that if they're trash. So I'm never saying that he's trash or he doesn't belong up there with the top tier, you know, basketball players. But these types of losses to me expose the very thing that's wrong with him to me. And if he went to the finals with a different mentality, then his record would be flipped. It'd be 6-4 instead of 4-6 or whatever the hell it is. It might even be more. And we saw what happened with when Grant Williams got up in Jimmy Butler's face. Jimmy Butler's immediate reaction. Immediate. He didn't even have time to really process what's going on. But he was really laughing at that dude. Then he went over there and gave the guy a solid bucket and won. And they have some choice words for him. Grant Williams wanted to get in his face. Butler gave it to him. And as I'm watching those two exchanges, give that exchange, I'm looking at Jimmy Butler and saying, this guy is crazy about competing.
yeah,
He's a crazy competitor. And he's that guy that you play in a one-on-one that wants to destroy you or just beat you every time. And he's the type of person that loves one-on-ones. He just likes to compete. And when we're dealing with LeBron, he doesn't have that gear. He never had that in him. And even last night, I'm sitting there watching the game when the game was still in reach. He's pounding the ball for I don't know how long. Then drives to the center of the 3-point line and then kicks it to Schroeder. He did that his entire career. I know you're tired, I know, but that's not a play call. No one's getting open. That's you pounding the ball and you throwing it to a man in the corner. When that man in the corner misses because his name's not Ray Allen, you don't get bailed out. And then LeBron didn't get any help. Why? Because he filled the stat sheet again. It's the same cycle over and
every
over.
year. Yeah,
Every time
yeah,
he loses, it's the same dumb shit. And
yeah,
that's why I get frustrated with him.
yeah,
Because I know that he's so talented that he should be able to really dominate a game. But he dominates the game the wrong way. And he just out athletes you. And his teams always out talent you. He's never been on a team where the team he was on, they either out coached or just flat out outplayed him. He's always been on a team where he's had the flat out best talent. That's not anything. Now people can holler about the Golden State thing, but again, you've got caveats to that, and that's why you got to keep whole track of those things. Because people like to throw shit in your face and don't remember the whole story.
yeah,
Yeah. So my whole thing is that this just exposed him, and of course, for a LeBron hater like myself, I'm going to like you said, I'm going to use this against him in the court of law because
absolutely.
this proves my point. This is an
Yeah,
excellent case study of how he does this every time and how he confuses everyone, and they get caught in the propaganda of a box score, but they don't know why he's the one eating and everybody else can't play. Maybe, just maybe, He doesn't feed his teammates the right way because we're seeing what's going on in Miami with Jimmy Butler, and that's a great case study. Because if LeBron was as selfless as Jimmy, you can see he could still get his. He still fills the stat sheet. Look at Jokic. He still fills the stat sheet. He stuffs it, and he didn't look like he was dominating the ball at all. Everything's within the flow of the game. LeBron is the greatest athlete to ever get on a basketball court. Why not you, sir? And he never stepped into that. Sorry, y'all, he didn't. And last night was proof of it. So, yeah, man, I can go on about this guy, uh, and it's not because I hate him, man. It's because I really do love the guy.
No, just
I'm just,
embrace it.
I'm just trying to tell everybody out here, all the fanboys out here, that hey, man, I ain't hating because I know my nephew gonna look at this and give me some choice words later. But listen, bro, your icon ain't it.
It's not.
He just ain't it. And I know he's doing that at 38. That's still immaculate all in itself. But again, that's just speaking to what he's always did. Been a hell of an
Yeah,
athlete.
I don't even care about that. I've already said he gets my I will give him the Iron Man award.
Yeah.
I will give him the greatest of all time Iron Man award for playing at a high level the longest.
Yes.
I'll give him that. But to me, I'm peak over longevity. I don't care about that. That doesn't mean that you're just the greatest ever because you did that. I'm peak over longevity all day. So you can have your 20 years, 38 years old. Good for you. I'm a clap. Good job. You got the Iron Man award. Congratulations. Otherwise, get out of here with that. But that's what LeBron fans do. They suckle at the teat. Like they need any kind of thing to bolster the claim of him being the greatest ever. Because if you limit it to skills, championships, if you limit it to like skills in postseason, there's obvious holes in his career resume that cannot be ignored. So to supplement that, you bring in the 28, 8 and 7 average, and you bring in the stuffing of the stat sheets and the advanced analytics, and you bring in these weird anecdotal statements that don't mean anything, like he made his teammates better than anybody else. I don't even know. I still don't know what that means. Um, that's what you do to offset the finals losses. That's what you do to offset the breaks that went their way with referees and suspensions and injuries. That's what you do to offset final sweeps. That's what you do to offset being the prohibited favorite to win the finals in 2009 when they were 66 and 16 and then got exposed and lost to the Orlando Magic. Like they were supposed to win the championship that year. They won 66 games in the regular season. And then when they lost, suddenly he didn't have help. So you have enough help to be the favorite the whole year, but then you don't have enough help once you lose. I don't understand it. But that was when I started realizing that he gets the superstar double standard benefit more than anybody I've ever seen in my life. And since you're going to throw these things in my face, these LeBron lovers, you advocates out there, you LeBron zealots, then I reserve the right to bring up the fact that he was swept multiple times in the postseason. And there's nothing that you can do about it because it's a record of fact. Now, if we were just talking about where he stands, top 10 or whatever, and, we can, if the conversation ended that he's one of the greatest ever, then I'd be willing to relent on some of this stuff. But no, y'all want to force this idea down my throat that he's the greatest player ever. So since you're forcing this down my throat, I'm going to pick Nets. So yeah, you better not lose in the conference finals. You better not lose in the finals. You better not have these blunders take place because I'm going to use it against you. Because and don't get me wrong, I do care about I do look at nuance. So I'm not just black and white, oh, Jordan 6 for 6, LeBron 4 and 6, conversation over, Jordan never lost in the finals. I get that there's nuance and context. So I'm not just straight up who has more rings guy. Right. But I'm also looking at the other stuff too. Sweeps in series, injuries, suspensions, all of that stuff. I look at this stuff because if I don't have that to look at, I can't pick the Nets. And I therefore have to allow you to convince me that he's the greatest ever. And I will never concede that. So it is what it is for him. I think that it's, you know, detrimental more than it is beneficial that they got swept out of there like that. And I do concur with your assessment that towards the end of that series, especially after they lost the first two games, like the first two games in Denver, I felt like they were trying to play holistically. But then once it got clear that they could lose this thing and lose it bad, they reverted back to LeBron ball.
Exactly.
LeBron having the ball every possession for
Yep.
20 of the 24 seconds of the shot clock,
Yep.
never coming out of the game, playing every minute,
Yep.
and dictating how the offense works every single second of the game.
Yep.
Um, with the exception of the couple times that Austin Reeves made a play off the dribble.
Right.
And now, because they lost, we're going to play the result. And now all of his teammates need to be evaluated,
Yes.
except for Reeves. And I guess Reeves and Hachimura are the only ones who passed the test. But everybody else is on the chopping block.
Yep.
Everybody else is now suspect because of the result. Because
Yep.
if you're LeBron's teammate and
Yep.
you don't succeed, it must be because of y'all. It has to
Yes.
be.
Every
It
time.
has to be.
Every time.
It must. It has to
Every
be.
time. And again,
So
it's a thing of beauty. It's a work of art. Just stuff the stat sheet, bruh. Ain't nobody gonna ask you about nothing. Oh, he ain't getting no help again. Now, if Tatum, now the way the Celtics is losing, if Tatum stuffs the stat sheet, if he scores some field goals in the fourth quarter, but he didn't do any of that. So he becomes the easy scapegoat.
yeah,
But if you fill up the stat sheet, it looks like you did something when you didn't do shit. And so, sorry, LeBron fans. I don't
yeah,
care that he's 38. Stop. If he's 38 and he's filling up the stat sheet like that, he's still a good damn 38. And that means he can dial it back some and be more efficient. And you don't need to be a volume 3-point shooter. You don't need to be a volume dribbler. You can be so efficient with your game because you are so talented and you know the game so much that you don't need to expend yourself with so many dribbles and all of this stuff. Where's that level of evolution? I'm not seeing that. And I'm just seeing him try to do the young man pound the ball stuff, bully his way to the basket when he can't get shit going, bully his way to the basket. And it's just like, look, bro, you didn't learn shit. And that's why I find it hard for people that glorify his basketball IQ and stuff. Like, boy, if your IQ was high enough, you would see how you're not helping your teammates. So the Jimmy Butler situation, what's going on in Miami, everyone use that as a case study and just evaluate how teams should be run from here on out, from
yep,
player development to how schemes are run, from coaching to actually coaching, not letting them just go out there and play pickup. So there's what the Heat are really doing. To hell with all the culture stuff. Just watch what they're doing. And then
yeah,
when you see what they got going on, if LeBron did any of that, then this same Lakers team would have still been in the series if they
yeah,
played holistic full basketball. But like you said, they tried in that first game, but they were playing against a machine that knows how to do that. And by the way, that machine has been together for the last whatever years, and they added pieces to that machine in Denver. So the Heat has also been here. So and that's one more thing that all these teams that just get amalgamated and slammed together. The Celtics, that's been the unit that's always been together. So the teams that's been up there, outside of the Lakers, really, because the Lakers have their core, I guess, with whatever AD and LeBron, but everything else is different. So the core teams are the ones that are mainly up at the top. I think teams need to really evaluate what's going on. Stop dancing with free agency and trades like the Kyrie and KD stuff that's going on. It seems sexy, the Harden stuff. It seems sexy. It seems cool, but these guys aren't a part of anything. You see that the real teams that really play together are the teams that are advancing. No different than the NCAA tournament where there's actually older people versus all these one and dones. I think that having a real solid system and a real program about how you run your team, it goes a long way. But one thing about LeBron ball, it's going to change every off season. And so just
every
like
time.
I said
Yeah,
before we did all of this, we in previous conversations, they're going to clean slate. And like you said, they're just keeping Reeves and Hachimura. Everybody else can get the boot. You
yeah.
know, yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
So
because the idea is you're on LeBron's clock. But the thing is, and I'm inclined to agree. Like, yeah, you can't really at this point because he is ancient. You can't really homegrown it the way the Heat did. I don't think
no,
there's
you
that
can't.
much time.
Nah.
But you can still start with a roster in the beginning of the season that makes sense and just have LeBron be a featured person who has a role within the offense. But there's just this idea that it has to be that LeBron, and I get that, like, the media tries to suggest that LeBron wants to pass the torch or doesn't need to play this way. Okay, well, if that's true, why is that every time we get into the playoffs, it ends up degenerating into LeBron ball anyway? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's the truth here? Because at the end of the day, if he either wants to just be a cog in the roster or he wants to feature it. It doesn't have to be a situation where every season the only way to get there is by reverting back to LeBron controlling the whole thing. Like, where's the give there? Like, you know what I'm saying? But that's just the way it always happens. And the double standard is always in place because, like, let's say that Jason Tatum stuffs the stat sheet tonight and the Celtics lose. Let's say Jason Tatum has a LeBron stat sheet where he gave you 34, 13 rebounds, maybe he blocked 2 shots and had like 8 or 9 assists. They're not going to say that Jason Tatum didn't have help. They're just going to say Jason Tatum ain't ready and the Celtics need to retool and they didn't get it done. That's what
Yeah.
they'd say.
Yeah.
But there's no difference. And you don't know that this guy ain't ready. Like, not everybody's the same. But if they're doing the same thing and contributing in the same ways, and you're going to use the stats in favor of LeBron, then you should apply the same standard to everybody else, especially if they're in the same circumstance. And more often than that, that does not happen. But be that as it may, it is what it is. There is no such thing as fair. Fair is a made up notion. It does not exist. Fairness is not real. It's what you work to earn and what you get in life. There is no such thing as fair. And because there is no such thing as fair, then LeBron, because you're trying to suggest to me that he's the greatest ever, he gets to a point where he's flirting around with being in the inner sanctum. And when you're in the inner sanctum, series sweeps count against you more than losing in 6 or 7 games in a previous round. They just do. So it is what it is. LeBron doesn't care. It's more so his fans and the people in the media who champion him who need to understand that more than LeBron himself because he doesn't care. But it's these people in the media who are so obnoxiously in defense of him all the time that get on my nerves. And then that trickles down to his fans who just regurgitate the same jargon all the time. And I'm over it. And it's one of the reasons why I'm ready for him to retire. But until he does, I'll have to accept all of these playoff defeats because when it comes to debating him against everyone else who also has impeccable resumes, I'm going to bring up stuff like this. So, yeah, LeBron went 4 for 6. Y'all can talk about how great it is that he went to the finals 10 times. Whatever. I'm looking at win-loss ratio. Kobe went to the finals 7 times. He won 5 of the 7 times. 7 times ain't easy to do either. So it ain't 10, but it's still 7. That's a lot of times to get to the finals. And he won 5 of them. And then, of course, Jordan with the 6 for 6. So it is what it is. Right or wrong, that's just what he gets. And that's what I'm going to give him every time. So that's why it matters. And that's why I would say he's probably better served losing in a previous round. But, I'm also a hater. So what are you going to do? I guess I'm a hater. I feel like I speak facts and logic, but I guess I'm a LeBron hater.
Nah, yeah, you're a hater, and you're a hater. I am a hater too, man. But hey, it's all good, bro. It's all in fun. But yeah, I didn't really. Maybe I did, but I didn't really consider it so much. Maybe I did. I call it the Tim Tebow thing because I didn't really have a problem with Tebow. I had a problem with how the media covered him and how the fans was just on his sack so hard. And it's like, bro, he's not that one like that. But then over time I was like, you know what? I don't dislike Tebow because Tebow ain't do nothing to me.
Yeah.
I don't dislike Tebow. I dislike the media machine.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and I think I maybe said this before, but yeah, well, LeBron, there's a lot of things about him that I do admire. When it comes down to the basketball court, though, I'm gonna tear him apart.
Yes.
But as a man and how he's carried himself as an individual with the spotlight on him, yeah, I give him kudos for that all day. But on the basketball court, sorry fans, I'm going to tear him a new one because
Yeah.
the media, as you mentioned, has forced, and again, of course, the narrative today, was all that he ain't have enough help,
Yeah.
and it's been this every time he gets eliminated from the playoffs.
Every time.
And so, and yeah, nobody else gets that preferential treatment outside of Tom Brady, and it's
Yeah.
disgusting. It's disgusting.
It is. It is. It is. And after a while, I conceded it to Brady because 7 Super Bowls
Yeah,
and
I'm
his
starting.
win-loss ratio in championship games is just so much better than
He's a
LeBron.
competitor, and he's a
Yeah, it's like,
competitor.
okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just concede that to Brady. I don't like the double standard, the existence of it, but I'll concede it to Brady because that to me is feasible enough. But not with LeBron. I can't stand it. And I will never concede that he is what a lot of people. I never will. I'm never going to concede
Yeah,
that.
I'm not.
So it is what it is, and I will continue to bring these things up because I don't care how much longer he continues to play. At what cost is it when this happens every year? And then on top of this happening every year, I have to hear these people tell me that he's the greatest ever because of the losses somehow in a weird way. Him being in year 20, age 38, doing this is increasing his legend. Not to me. Not to me. He's getting swept out of there and he's looking tired in these games. But yeah, I'm a hater and I'm proud of it because I'm tired of it. I'm
Le-
ready for him to hang it up.
LeBron can
Um,
play it, but he can play until he's like 42, honestly. And I'll say this, LeBron, if you can hear me, because I know you can. If you make a career switch right now, on the court, and decide to take less money, hear me out, LeBron. You got all the money you need. All right, take less money. Let's start there, so you can actually build a team around yourself. Crazy idea, I know. Take less money, LeBron. Then while you're taking less money, just play the position that's by your name. Now, if that's point guard, let that just be point guard. But I strongly prefer at this point of your life, small forward, power forward, and just play that position and be a cog in the wheel of a team. I don't think anybody's beating you. You can win like 3, 4 championships in a row just from what you can do on a basketball court, taking less money and having real talent around you. I think that you can go out on a very high note. That not only was he still being able to play at a high level into his latter years, he became this on the court coach, man, in his last few years and won champion. I think that'll be a great little legacy. Hey, LeBron, you heard me? You can scoff if you want,
stop,
bro.
stop.
He gonna be there scoffing. I believe in you, LeBron.
Oh,
Just
God.
take less money. That ain't
Whatever.
happening.
All right. I'm done. It's enough. I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, don't spill too much tea. Cause if they actually start doing that and he actually starts winning, I might have to revisit some of my stances.
Yeah, man, and I
Um,
love it. I would
no,
love it.
no.
It'd be
To
a hell of a
hell with
redemption story.
that. No, I'm no. Keep getting swept, LeBron. Keep getting swept, baby. Keep playing that LeBron ball. But
Oh man.
yeah, so that'll do it for our latest LeBron James topic. And that will also do it for tonight's stream on the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. As always, if you have not done so and you happen to catch wind of some of this content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so that you can join in on what we do over here in this little corner of the internet. Those subscriber numbers are going up, and we certainly appreciate everybody who's jumped on board as we continue to rock and roll. Um, Again, my name is JV Wins. That is Dogon SS. You can find Conscious Approach on Instagram at ConApproach, ConApproach. And I as well am on Instagram at JV Wins, JVWINS. Wherever you happen to be watching this video, whether it is indeed on YouTube or if you happen to be watching this on the Facebook uploads, go ahead and hit that like button, man. Follow the page, man. Share it. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the commentary on each of the videos. Let us know where you think we're going right or wrong. It's all love. We certainly appreciate it. Look out for the audio feed wherever podcasts are available as we get that ramped up. So looking forward to it, man. But we really enjoy this, and we certainly appreciate everybody who comes in and leaves a comment, hits that like button, increases those views because we kicking some real good game over here. And it needs to be seen by a greater audience. So appreciate everybody for helping to support that cause. And until next time, I'll see you on the next video.
Yes, sir. And the name is Dogon SS. You can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS and on YouTube at Dogon SS. Also, Hurricane Dogon on YouTube as well. And as I say on every part, guys, don't be too high, don't be too low. Keep it calm, keep it chill, keep it player. All right. And don't let nobody get you off your pivot. All right. So until the next time, guys, we'll catch y'all on the flip side. Skirt, skirt,
Yes,
skirt.
sir. Until next time, man, we out of there. Peace.
Peace. Go
Go
Heat.
Heat, baby. Go
Yeah,
Heat,
god damn it.
baby. Yeah.
Oh
I'm about to
man.
be out there on Hialeah. We win this
Oh
championship.
man. That'll
Oh
be so
yeah.
live, bro. That'll be so live.